bring up Diane Baxter and David Foss. And I really wanted Diane to introduce this topic because Diane is the director of our federal sites program, and the Brownfields program is part of that in our waste site cleanup structure. And Diane was really instrumental this last year in responding to the availability of money EPA had under the bipartisan infrastructure law that they were rolling out for Brownfields projects. And she worked with our regional Brownfields coordinators to identify some projects and put that into a proposal. And we were successful in getting funds to do that. So I really want to credit Diane and the regional Brownfields coordinators for doing that work. And I'll turn it over to you, Diane.
All right, thank you. So I am on borrowed time now because I just got a notification from my computer that it's going to shut down in 10 minutes and there's nothing I can do about it. So I guess it's good timing because I'm not going to take 10 minutes. But as Liz said, I'm the director of the Division of Federal Grant Programs here in Waste Site Cleanup. So that covers Brownfields. It also covers federal Superfund sites where we get grant money from EPA and DOD. Also CERCLA pre-remedial program, the leaking underground storage tank program, and RCRA corrective action. So pretty much everywhere that we get federal funding to help run our programs is what's in my purview. So our big news in Brownfields this month, I guess, is we welcomed our new statewide Brownfields coordinator, David Foss, after the position being vacant for several years. David comes to us with many years of experience working as a hydrogeologist and LSP here in Mass, and he has a substantial experience in Brownfields, assisting municipalities and others in seeking Brownfields grants and implementing those grants, as well as a variety of Brownfields projects. So David's going to be assisting us in our grant management. The most recent grant that Liz referred to, where we're anticipating about 900,000 coming to us in December that's focused strictly on site-specific cleanup and assessment projects. So David will be working to get projects lined up and expedite work for that grant. He's also going to be helping DEP obtain additional grants. We hope to take advantage of some of this infrastructure funding that EPA is granting out in the coming few years. In addition to the work that David's going to be doing helping DEP's programs, though, he's going to be also working to advance Brownfields cleanup and redevelopment statewide. So he's going to be assisting municipalities and other stakeholders to connect with other resources. And I'm going to hand it over to him next, and he's going to give you some important program updates that'll kind of illustrate how he can maybe help you, and we can all be in this together. So, David.
Cool. Thanks, Diane. And Liz, if you want to go to the next slide. So one of the more important things I wanted to say is here's my contact info, and if you have clients, and I'm going to kind of rattle off a list of kind of people who can be eligible for EPA federal Brownfields grant funding. If you have clients who fit some of these categories, ask them to reach out to me. Like, I am happy to give them guidance as to where the links are, where the information is. There's certain threshold criteria, like, am I eligible, that I can help answer some questions, but I can also connect them with the correct people at EPA Region 1's Brownfields office. So it's folks like any municipalities, land clearance authority, regional councils or regional planning commissions, redevelopment authorities, Indian tribes, nonprofits, a couple of different kinds of limited liability corporations can be eligible to apply for EPA funding. There's also some mass development funding, but I'm going to save that for a future discussion. my priority today is the EPA grants because the actual deadline is coming up. So Liz, next slide, please. So the deadline for the full-blown grant application is November 22nd. There's going to be some grants.gov website maintenance happening. So my strong advice to anyone who's applying is to get your application in by November 19th so that you're not tripped up by a website that might not be at full capacity after that date. But so as you can see here, so the right-hand column, the regular appropriated funds, the Brownfields program at the federal level has been at that $64–65 million level for years, like at least the last 4 years. And basically they're adding 200% of that. So the actual grant program this year will be much closer to 165, 170 nationally. But also the grant specific dollar amounts are much higher than they used to be. And so there's opportunities for folks to apply for, $1 million or $2 million cleanup grants. Like they're not going to give out too many of those nationally, but there's some really big ticket items here. So if folks have, what we used to call shovel ready sites, but that have known issues that can be dealt with, there's really good funding opportunities, and the EPA Region 1 folks are very enthusiastic about the availability of these funds this year and next year especially. Multi-purpose would be for municipalities or regional planning folks who might want to do assessment and cleanup. Revolving loan funds, usually go to bigger municipalities like City of New Bedford, City of Worcester have had successful RLFs. And to apply for cleanup grant funding, you have to own the property. So this is where either nonprofits or economic development corporations often are able to apply for cleanup funds. But so that entity has to own the property before the November 19th deadline. So if anyone has questions about how to apply, they should definitely reach out to me. Next slide, please. So two things I wanted to share as I talk about this slide are anyone who's applying has to have an account through grants.gov, and that is actually pretty straightforward. And then there used to be an identifier called your DUNS number. The DUNS number is through the sam.gov website. That number doesn't exist, or that number exists, but they're using a different thing now called a unique entity identifier, a UEI. Time critical. If you have a client who thinks they want to apply for a grant, they need to go to sam.gov and make sure they've applied for an unique entity identifier. That has some time lag, and we don't want people waiting to the last minute. But the other thing that I want to share is that there's this thing called the technical assistance to brownfields, and UConn is the current provider for EPA Region 1. And the people in this program, like their program is completely funded by the EPA Brownfields program. And so it doesn't cost an eligible entity like a town or a nonprofit economic development folks. It doesn't cost you anything to reach out to them and say, hey, I could use some help. They are incredibly helpful. They're very knowledgeable. And at certain points in the grant application process, they will review an application. And so the first window was last week, and so that's not out there. But I think if people were to get a draft application to them, I think the deadline was like November 4th or November 6th. They will literally go through a narrative application and give guidance and feedback, and they are really, really helpful and knowledgeable. And so in the world of things you could share with potential grant applicants, kind of timelines are coming up. This is due in less than 4 weeks, and that the TAB group is a really great resource. And then one of my roles is communicating and getting this information out to folks. So I have already reached out to the 14 regional planning commissions in the Commonwealth, and I've connected with a bunch of municipalities, just trying to make sure anyone who's applied for grant money in the past is thinking about it again. EPA thinks there's going to be a really good wave of success stories coming out of this. And the Commonwealth has really done a good job being represented in the EPA Brownfields program. So don't hesitate to email me. I'm glad to give people guidance and point them in the right direction if I don't know the actual answer.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David? For Diane? Okay. All right, thank you.